All right, 6:06 now, Rob. Seems like you have a busy morning going on. I know a lot of people are wondering what's going to happen. Where do things stand right now?
All right, so we got a lot going on. I'm still trying to update the last couple of things. And just the last minute or so, looks like we got a new tornado warning right up here. So that's going to be something we're going to be watching real carefully and going to keep our eyes on. I'm going to spend a bunch of time talking about this in the next little while. As a matter of fact, we're going to kind of break it down together. I see some pretty intense lightning and rain in these areas. As a matter of fact, if we zoom in right now, we're going to see some of those serious areas of lightning and rain. And you got to get right around Camilla, north of Spence right now. This is the area that we're going to have the most concern. I'm going to step off and see if I can play around with some of the graphics here and see what's going on with this individual cell. And we're going to talk about this for a little while. So we'll go to one of the products that we use, the velocities. And this is one of the things that we don't show on TV all the time. And we're looking at this area right in here where you can see some of the red and some of the green right up on each other. When we see that, that's usually an indicator that there's winds moving in two different directions real close to each other, and that is likely a very dangerous situation. So what we're seeing are winds moving away and towards. They're not the strongest ones I've ever seen, that's for sure, but we never mess around with the potential for some of these dangerous rotating thunderstorms. And that's what we're looking at here, a little bit to the southwest of Camilla, a little bit to the northeast of Bainbridge, a little bit due west of Spence. So that's the area right now of our most concern, and we're going to continue to watch this over the next little while. This tornado warning issued by the National Weather Service is going to go until, looks like 6:15. So we got a little time for it to continue watching this as it continues making its progress to the east. So lots to watch. I will keep coming back to this one because there's going to be a lot to watch and digest with this particular area. Now, there's a lot going on in other spots right now. As a matter of fact, we see from I-10, when you get a little west of Quincy, all the way out past Mariana and Bonifay to Defeniac Springs, we've got some pretty intense rain and lightning there too, and more that extends all the way back down towards the Gulf Coast, west of Panama City, over near Destin. There have been some tornado warnings here. They're just about expired or about to expire shortly, and they look a lot less impressive now than they did about 15, 20 minutes ago. But that one in South Georgia is the one that we're going to be watching most carefully and with the most interest for the next little while. We're going to stay here with the weather for a little while, go back to that, and continue talking about that individual cell that you can see moving from west-east across our area. So we've got this big batch of showers and storms, not quite to areas like Tallahassee or Thomasville yet, but within the next hour, I think we're going to start seeing more of the rain, more of the wind, more of the thunder in those spots. But let's go back to that one cell that we're watching that's going to be up in South Georgia right now that's got the most potential for some of the dangerous weather with it, and that's that rotating one. And we never mess around with a tornado warning, especially when it's near one of our immediate counties. So we're talking right around Camilla here, and you can see all that lightning. And if I take the lightning off the map, what we're going to find is you're going to see that really dark color, maybe just a little bit due west of Spence. I'll zoom in a little bit more. So this is going to be the area right through here. I'm going to draw a circle around it that we're most concerned. So that's going to be north of Bainbridge, it's going to be north of Cairo, it's going to be south of Camilla, it's going to be west of Pelham and Spence. So this, and it's moving from west to east. So as it moves in that direction, areas in more of our viewing spots in South Georgia are going to be, so we're talking like northern Grady County, like north of Wiggum, those areas, that's where we're going to be a little bit more concerned for the potential for that rotating thunderstorm. Maybe up Highway 111 or 112 could be some of the areas that in the next 15 or 20 minutes that we're watching this individual cell continue to make its progress and eventually getting over towards Highway 19, well north of Thomasville. So this is not along Highway 84 near Wiggum or Bainbridge or Cairo. We've got some pretty good rain around Bainbridge, just about knocking on the door to Wiggum, but that's not where the rotation is. The rotation is well to the north, and we're going to continue to monitor this. As a matter of fact, it almost looks like that rotation where we see that little bend here is maybe near Highway 87. So that's going to be the spot right now, due west of Pelham, that's got the most potential for that dangerous weather. So if you're in that area right now, that's where you're going to want to make sure you're going to be away from windows and doors. If you've got friends or loved ones in that area, southwest of Camilla, maybe just due west of Pelham, a little bit north and west of Spence, these are going to be the areas you want to wake them up, make sure they're aware that there could be a really dangerous developing cell right there. And that's what we're going to be watching for the next 15 minutes or so at least. This is the spot that's the most in danger because of that possible rotation. And with each progressive scan, that's encouraging when we start to see the reds and greens sort of blend in and stop being so distinct. Now, we've got some pretty bright colors just west of it. So that tells me that the wind is still moving really fast over here. And the faster the winds are moving in one direction and the faster the winds are moving in the other direction, that could indicate still some strength. But when they're really close to each other, like if we see these two little pixels and they're bumping into each other, that's when we see if there's a green one and a red one real close to each other, or a bright white one and a bright pink one real close to each other. That indicates a possibility of some really strong rotation. When there's a little bit more space between the brighter colors, that usually tells us that it's not as strong right near that couplet where the rotation is happening. So each progressive scan, and it takes 60 seconds for the scan to happen, each progressive scan, if it continues to show us that things are getting maybe a little less bright, that's better news for that individual cell maybe getting a little bit weaker. But any way you look at it, it's a dangerous situation, and we're talking a little bit west of Pelham. We're talking a little bit southwest of Camilla. As a matter of fact, I've got some tools here that I can show to show you how far away from these are. So from about here, we're talking about 10 miles from Pelham. We're talking about maybe 7 or 8 miles southwest of Camilla. That's the area right now of most concern. I want to watch 1 or 2 more scans in this area with this current tornado warning, just to see if it continues to spread out a little bit. The more that it does, the less concerned I will be. It's still a very dangerous situation. Yeah, no change with that scan. So we've got things that we're certainly going to be watching, especially in this area. That is going to be where we have the most potential danger. Now, as far as the radar goes for the whole area, let me reset a little bit and walk us through what's going on. First things first, we see this pretty sharp looking line of showers and storms with a lot of lightning. That is where we could see more individual cells develop with not only the strong wind gusts or the hail, but also rotation. So we're going to be watching this really, really carefully over the next little while, because now we have a history. We know we've got the warm, humid air in place. It doesn't take much to generate some more dangerous storms. And once you start seeing some, sometimes that's a good indication. That's the area to look at to find some more. We had some of those more dangerous ones further to the south and to the west, over towards Panama City and Destin and Defuniak Springs a little bit earlier. But things look like they're opening up over here, looking a little bit less sharp. But now we get up towards Bainbridge and we get up a little further north towards Moultrie. That's going to be the area that we're watching with the most concern right now. So a lot going on in South Georgia, north of Seminole County, north of Grady County, north of Decatur County, and north in even Thomas County. We're going to be watching real carefully. So south and west of Camilla, you can see all that lightning. That's one of our spots right now where we have that concern, where that rotation could still be hanging on. And you can see where Cairo is, you see where Bainbridge is, Highway 84, and right through here we've got this little bit of a darker color. That could also indicate not necessarily rotation, but what that could indicate is some really intense rain, some really intense lightning, or possibly some hail. So we've got some things in northern parts of Grady County right now that we're going to have to watch real carefully. And I still see too much of that bright green and that bright red real on top of each other. That still indicates that there's definitely some life left to this rotating cell, and that is one of the ones that we have to watch really, really carefully. So in that area, we're going to want to make sure we continue to monitor what's going on, and I think we're going to have to continue to monitor that for a while. We have a new tornado warning just south of Chattahoochee right now, just north of I-10. So we got it circled here for you. And you can see that little bright spot of green right along I-10. This one doesn't look like it's the biggest situation or cell, but it's a very dangerous one, especially when you see that bright color flare up like that. And again, we were talking about how that line has had that history and where we had some intense activity. Well, right there, just along I-10, south of Chattahoochee. So almost over towards Gretna, still about 10 or 15 miles away, but moving towards the east. So this is going to be the area along I-10, moving towards western parts of Gadsden County, that we're going to be watching real carefully for some potential danger. So now we have 2 areas where we have tornado warnings, where the radar is picking up some rotation. That means if you're in either of these areas, northern Grady County, southwest of Camilla, just due west of Spence, these are going to be the areas you want to make sure that you're away from exterior windows, doors, walls. You're going to want to make sure your friends or loved ones are awake and aware of what's going on, where they are. And if you're in a mobile home, we want to get to those mobile home shelters because that'll give you a little bit more of a chance if those winds are as dangerous as they are. And you can see this current tornado warning that's near I-10 west of Greensboro, a little bit northwest of Greensboro here in Gadsden County. It's a radar indicated rotation. So this is one where the radar picked up that signature that there's rotation. Not one of the ones where someone's actually seen it. But when you see the bright greens like that right up against some of the brighter reds, that usually indicates that there is some rotation there with winds moving in two different directions real close. And when we start to see that, now we start looking for some danger. Now, this is one of those areas, and it's still along that line that extends from southwest to northeast, where we've had some of the history of not just the rain, but also the wind, the lightning, and the hail. And it doesn't have to be a tornado to cause damage. So we can have some strong wind gusts up over 60 or 70 or even 80 miles per hour that can knock trees down, knock power out, and cause significant damage. So we have many things that we're going to be watching. And one of those things that we're going to be watching really carefully, of course, is going to be where that rotation is picked up here in northern parts of Grady County. And I still keep looking at this area here that may be indicating maybe something else forming. I see some of that bright red when you get maybe just across Highway 19 now straight south of Camilla and just north of Spence. So this area is raising my interest a little bit. But over here, if we go back to the other radar view, and we take a look at the reflectivity, you see where that purple color is. That's where some really intense rain is. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some hail coming in this area right there. And sure, on the hail tracker, that's what we're starting to see right now, right? Some small hail falling in that area. So we get that intense concentration of the rain, of the lightning, of the reflectivity, which is what the radar is picking up. That's how the radar sees it. They see the concentration, and then when it gets back to the radar, the computer hooked onto the radar tells us what it is that it's seeing. It goes through a whole bunch of algorithms. But when you see all that, yeah, that's usually one of those tip-off spots for meteorologists saying, okay, that's an area where there's some dangerous weather. So that's going to be just north of Cairo, maybe getting up to Highway 19. I see straight south of Camilla, maybe just a little bit north of Spence, this area right in here where we have some of the bright reds and bright greens real close to each other. That still looks like there's some pretty good rotation there. So radar indicated tornado means there's some sort of rotation that triggered one of those algorithms on the computer hooked up to the radar to indicate that there is some rotation. So it's a really dangerous spot. Anyone near and around Spence, just south of Camilla, you're going to want to make sure this is the time when you're in your safe place, when you're in your shelter, away from exterior windows, doors, walls. And remember, this is early in the morning, right? We're still at 6:18, so people might still be sleeping. If you've got friends, loved ones there, call them up, make sure that they're awake and aware that there's some dangerous weather where they are. Now let's take a look at that one in Gadsden County over here, just north of Sycamore, not quite over towards Hardaway yet, maybe south of Rosedale. Now, it doesn't look as strong as the one in South Georgia, but I still see some of those two different colors real close to each other. That tells me that there's still some possible rotation. That's why the radar picks it up. And as this continues to work its way from west to east, it's moving fairly quickly. So that means all interests along I-10 in Gadsden County, especially when you get maybe past the Quincy exit on I-10, that's going to be an area where we're certainly watching for this to continue moving. So that's a dangerous situation. You're going to want to stay off the road. You're going to want to stay inside. If you normally get going for your travel, for your morning commute around this time, or maybe around 6:30, maybe you wait a little bit longer, let this cell move by, let it weaken, and then go out for your morning commute. No reason to go out into that right now with the potential danger that's there. That's just putting yourself in harm's way for no reason. So that's one area. You can see we're probably talking 10, 15 miles west of Quincy that we've got some possible rotation indicated by radar, and that is a dangerous spot right now. Let's go back to the wider view and take a look at the entire area, reset and start all over again so we can break down what's happening in a lot of other spots. I know there's lots of people tuning in to find out what's going on with the weather where you are, and that's more than just these indicated areas. I want to make sure we continue coming back to these spots where the danger is the highest. But I see a lot of lighter activity from once you get to Moultrie and Thomasville and Tallahassee East. Maybe starting to get some drizzles in a few areas, but the bigger rains are associated with this line that is making its way from maybe just east of Albany, back all the way down between Cairo and Bainbridge, and then it kind of bends back a little further to the west, back west of Quincy, east of Mariana. And there's been quite the history with this line of showers and storms since earlier this morning, with not just wind gusts and lightning and hail, but also now several tornado warnings. Can you see the counter in the top side of the screen there? How much lightning over the past 10 minutes has been coming down? More than 1,000 lightning strikes? That's a lot. So we've got frequent lightning, which is a very dangerous situation in itself. And if we zoom in back to that area in more of Grady County. Is anybody else noticing? We see those darker colors starting to spread a little further to the south and west. Remember before it was just that one little area in northern Grady County. Well, now it's back down along Highway 84, and now it's back all the way maybe into parts of Decatur County just to the north and east of Attapulgis. And when we go to the hail tracker, we can see some of those areas of purple where there's probably some light hail coming down. So light hail is still a dangerous situation. Frequent lightning is always a dangerous situation. The potential for the rotation, always the most dangerous situation. Right now, the current tornado warning that we have is between Camilla and Spence. It's getting real close to Pelham, by the way. So if you are in or around Pelham, or if you know people there, now you want to make sure that they're awake and they're aware and that you're in your safe space, because that's where we could have some real dangerous weather right now, right around Pelham, moving from west to east and moving fairly quickly, right? It's been the last 10 minutes or so we've been talking, and it's been going from well over here to the west to now moving east through more and more. So as that continues to work its way east, we'll be on the lookout not just for Pelham, but for areas down the line, maybe as far east as Moultrie over the next hour or so, if this all holds together. And even if the rotation doesn't hold together, and it might not, the individual cell that's generating the dangerous weather with the wind gusts, with the lightning, and with the potential for hail, that can cause damage in itself. So some estimated times, just going from where we see that individual cell right now to where it looks like it's heading. So maybe between now and 6:30, 6:38, 6:40 over near Meigs, or maybe near 7 o'clock or 7:15 near Coolidge, or maybe up till 7:25 near Moultrie. These are going to be some of the areas where this individual cell moves as it moves almost due east and fairly quickly. So let's go back to the reflectivity again and see what's going on there, see if we see any more of those colors spreading in a couple more spots. You can see all the lightning for sure, and you can see some of the heavier rains coming down, starting to get around Ocklawahnee, definitely raining harder in Pelham and up towards Camilla. It does feel like that if the rotation continues to hold together, it's going to be well south of Camilla, but it's going to be near Pelham, and it's going to be near Spence in the next little while. And some of that hail, some of that purple color here on the radar, that tells me that that's just growing, so it's feeding off of the available warm, humid, unstable, and moist air, and that likely means it's going to be able to hold together and keep moving east. So more areas in northern Grady County, more areas into northern Thomas County, especially when we get to maybe Highway 19, we're going to find some spots in the next little while where some dangerous weather is possible, and it doesn't have to be a tornado to cause damage and to be very dangerous. Hail itself, really, really dangerous. The lightning itself, really, really dangerous. The heavy rains, really, really dangerous, especially when it comes down in a short period of time on some pretty hard ground. There's no place for it to go. That's when we get flash flooding, and flash flooding is one of the most dangerous types of weather that we end up having. So a lot to watch here in South Georgia. Let's widen out the whole view again and see how the progress is being made up and down that line, which sort of bends in a little bit for now more and more of Grady County, not quite into Thomas yet, not quite into Leon County yet, but we're seeing more and more in parts of Gadsden County. You get south of Bainbridge and you work your way back a little bit towards the south and towards the west, all the way down to I-10 and past I-10, we've got a whole bunch going on. As a matter of fact, how about the severe thunderstorm warning now for some more rain, wind, and wind gusts and hail? And that's one of those situations where there doesn't have to be the rotation for the dangerous weather. There's maybe not the rotation down south of the state line right now, but there certainly is the wind gust and the hail and the rain, and that's going to continue to cause dangerous situations where that individual batch of rain goes. And that looks like it's marching right east along I-10. So a lot of folks who have that morning commute, especially maybe starting now or in the next half hour or so, you're going to want to postpone that morning commute. Let the storm pass where you are, then get out on the roads. No reason to be out there on the roads when you have a potentially dangerous setup. I'm still watching over here near Greensboro. It's not nearly as impressive looking as what we saw in South Georgia a little earlier, but it's certainly one of those situations where as long as the warning is issued, we're going to continue to talk about it and continue to let people know, especially just west of Quincy. We're going to want to make sure that we're in our safe spaces and our shelters. If you're in a mobile home, you're going to want to get to that mobile home shelter for sure. You want to always stay at the lowest floor of your home. You want to always stay away from those exterior windows, doors, walls. Bathrooms are great places. Closets are great places. Stairwells are great places to be when you have a potential tornado near where you are. And right now, that area is from Greensboro to Quincy that I see the most potential for the dangerous weather in Gadsden County. So that's the area we're going to want to take our shelter. Let's go back out to the wide view again. we'll reset, start all over, and this time we're going to try to go through the whole setup here. All right, so we see a whole bunch of rain in a whole bunch of places. The most intense pocket of rain right now is in Grady County for sure, and that extends north to where that rotation still is, and that warning is still going to go for a little while longer. It extends all the way back to near Panama City. So this whole line, that energy has got to move through all this very warm, humid, unstable air, and that is likely going to trigger more individual cells that develop not necessarily rotation, but heavy rain, strong wind gusts, frequent lightning, and potential hail. So areas like Thomasville, where maybe it's just light rain right now, it's only 10, 15, 20 miles west where there's some really dangerous stuff, so we want to be on high alert there. In Tallahassee, it's only maybe 30 miles west where we want to be on high alert where there's some potentially dangerous weather. So those are going to be some of the spots that over the next hour, if the storm continues to move, that whole line is moving about 30 or 35 miles per hour. So within the next hour, we're going to start to see more and more of this rain and those wind gusts and that lightning and the potentially dangerous stuff get to where you are. So that's what we're watching most carefully now. And farther east, right? I'm sure there are people going, all right, well, Rob, I'm not in Tallahassee or Cairo or Thomasville, but I'm in Perry, I'm in Madison, I'm in Valdosta. I get you. It's going to take even longer to get there. So if it takes a half hour to get to Tallahassee, it's going to take maybe another 40 or 45 minutes to get to Monticello, and then maybe another 45 minutes from there to get to Madison. So you estimate that way, based on that speed going 30 or 35 miles per hour, the farther east you are, the longer it will take to get to where you are. And hopefully what we'll find is sometimes when you get these heavy downpours, that rain-cooled air actually stabilizes things just a little bit. And it only takes that little bit of stabilization to limit the potential for bigger storms. One of the more encouraging things about the time that we're getting these storms is we're not at the peak daytime heating. Yesterday, right, we had the 96 degrees in the afternoon and all that humidity. Had this line come through there, it would have been big time storms all over the place, but that energy was never going to get here at that time yesterday. Now we're getting it when we're not at our peak daytime heating. We're actually at our lowest amount of daytime heating. So the air itself, while it's still unstable, it's not as unstable as it would be if the sun were out and we had all that hot and all that humid going on. So that's the one encouraging thing, and it doesn't mean anything if you're in one of those areas where we're getting hail, where we're getting wind gusts, where we're getting frequent lightning, or where we're getting a potential tornado. So there's still a lot going on in many of parts of our area. The most significant right now is going to be in South Georgia. It's going to be in northern parts of Grady County. It's going to be right around Camilla. Highway 19 is going to be one of those spots well north of Thomasville. It's not moving towards Thomasville on Highway 19. It's north of there. It's near Spence. It's going to be up near Meigs in a little while. These are going to be the areas that I think have the most concern with this little batch. And I still see all those really deep colors in parts of Grady County right along Highway 84 near Cairo. So that means I bet there's some hail coming down right there in addition to some of that really intense rainfall. Go a little further west, Bainbridge, the rains are probably starting to slow down a little bit. Get north on Highway 27 where it was raining with heavy lightning and wind not too long ago. Things are much weaker but still raining from Colquitt to Blakely. Get a little further south from Bainbridge and we can see some of those darker colors down towards the state line. So you get to maybe the Decatur, Gadsden County line and we have some more intense rain in this area. And that's another one of those spots in Gadsden County approaching Quincy where we're concerned about that possible rotation, even if it looks weaker and weaker, and it does. And that's good news. Every time we see that scan go by and we see those colors get less intense, that's a good indication that maybe that rotation is weakening. But I still see that bright green spot right there, and I still see those other colors ahead of it. So that still tells me the potential for some rotation is still happening. So we're going to continue to monitor those two areas very carefully. The one in Gadsden County, the one that's just north of the Grady County line. So south of Camilla over there near Spence, that's been the spot that we've been watching with the most intensity for the last little while. And that's where the current tornado warning is, at least for a little while longer. Now, hopefully, this can wind down as it moves east and just bring some wind and some rain when we start getting over maybe to northern parts of Thomas County, over towards Meigs, maybe south of Moultrie. And that should be in the next 10 or 15 minutes. And if you watch this over the past hour or so this loop is going, we can see it definitely looks like there's less green, more red, telling me that the winds are not moving in the two directions as close to each other, and that is one of the first indicators that maybe that rotation is weakening. So hopefully that's the way things are going, and that continues to be the case. But if you are in areas right around Spence or maybe over towards Meigs right now, northern parts of Thomas County, northern parts of Grady County, go on and make sure you're in your safe space, because there's still going to be a bunch of wind, rain, and lightning, and I think there's going to be quite a bit of hail from Cairo up to Spence, and that's going to continue moving east. And if that hail stays along Highway 84, by the way, so now we go from Cairo to Thomasville, again, it's not a long distance, so that can hold together, and we can find some hail in those areas too. I know 6:30 for a lot of folks is prime time to start that morning commute. Now is not the time to begin that morning commute. Now is not the time to be heading out onto the roads. It'll be a much better idea to let this pass. Give it another half hour. It'll get past where you are, and then the rain is much, much weaker on the other side of it. Now, similarly, if you're over towards Boston or Quitman or Valdosta and you normally start your morning commute now, maybe it's a good time to get out and get going a little early so you can get to wherever you have to go before the rain gets there. But it's also not a terrible idea to let the rain pass even where you are. And if that means you have to be an extra hour late, so be it. Better to get someplace late and safe than to risk danger by getting out on the roads in a storm like this when there's no reason to do it, because that possible rotation is one thing, but a strong wind gust can really affect the way you're driving. And of course, hail is always a dangerous thing. So is the lightning, and so is the frequent rain. And I bet some spots on some of those roads that are getting a whole bunch of rain all of a sudden, that's going to make it really difficult to drive in, and it could get a little bit of flooding. It only takes that much. We're talking a quarter inch or less of water piling up on the roads to get your tires going the wrong way. So extra care is always important, but the best way to beat systems like this is to wait it out. Let it get past where you are, then make your morning commute. Currently, it's looking like the biggest rain is coming down right around Cairo. And matter of fact, if you start to get a little bit more to the north and a little bit more to the north and east, that's going to be one of the areas. I think we have another warning that just popped up a little further to the south now, south of Blountstown. Just see that developing right here. So what's happening is we find this energy moving into these areas where the air is very unstable, and now into parts of Calhoun and Liberty County. What we've got is another radar indicated rotation, and that means we've got another area we're going to be watching really carefully. And this one looks like it's moving not just east, but a little bit towards the southeast. So we've got all kinds of things to continue to monitor as we go through this next little while. And it feels like for the next 30 or 45 minutes, it's going to be all about the weather, because that's what's going to impact everybody right now. Some areas have already seen the rain. Some areas haven't gotten wet yet, but are waiting for it to get to where we are. And in the middle, we're seeing a whole bunch of those storms already start to happen. And some of those storms have not just the rotation, which is the incredibly dangerous stuff, but the wind gusts, the lightning, the rain, all that coming down can make for some really dangerous weather. And it doesn't need to be a rotating tornado that we see, in our minds of what a dangerous weather situation is. A wind gust of 65 or 70 miles per hour can cause all kinds of troubles. It can throw all kinds of debris around. It can knock trees down, knock power lines down, damage homes, and that can be just as damaging sometimes as a tornado. So those wind gusts are something we always watch and take very, very carefully. And usually those are in some of those severe thunderstorm warnings, but we take it a step further with that possible rotation. I'm here and we've got some camera views to show you, or at least a camera view to show you. Let's go to that and we can see what's happening here. This is Blountstown Middle School, and you can see the lightning, you can see the rain blowing the wind blowing the rain right towards the camera right there, and it seems like it's frequent lightning off in the distance. So a really good way to indicate what's going on out there. This is Blountstown right now, where we're seeing this weather, and that's one of those spots in Liberty County and Calhoun County where we've seen quite a bit of activity over the last little while, and that's going to continue, I think, as we work from west to east. That individual area here into Gadsden County. Can we zoom in over there just west of Quincy and take a look and see what's going on over here now? Because that one should be getting closer and closer to expiration time as it gets past Greensboro over near Quincy. And I still think this is going to be a dangerous area. So folks in and around Quincy going to want to make sure that we're definitely taking our shelter. And I still see some of that bright green just south of I-10, just east of Greensboro. That's going to be one of those areas that we watch real carefully for the next few minutes, and we'll see how well this is able to hold together. All right, so we got a Florida 501 camera right near Quincy. Let's take a look at it. And so we see some rain, and we see some lightning. I see a couple of cars on the road right there. So, all right, so near Quincy, maybe not as intense looking on that road currently as other areas are, but I do think we're going to find frequent lightning in lots of spots, and with that frequent lightning, we're going to continue to be looking for more dangerous situations, and there's going to be lots of them, I think, for the next little while. So we'll be watching all of these things. Let's go back out to the wider view and see what we've got going on all across the area. I still don't see a whole lot in Wakulla County, Leon County, Jefferson County, Brooks, Lowndes, Madison yet. but that doesn't mean we're not going to get wet here in the next 15 or 30 or 45 minutes. Now, I see a bunch of the activity making its way through northern parts of Grady into northern parts of Thomas County now, and a little bit more north of there. I see a whole bunch in southern parts of Decatur, all the way down to the state line, and that goes into Gadsden County, where we've got that really dangerous situation. More of that extends farther back all the way towards Panama City, and as this whole line continues to move from west to east, then yeah, more areas are going to find more of that dangerous weather. The wind gusts, the lightning, and the heavy downpours are dangerous enough, but then you start mixing in some of that rotation, and that's the really, really dangerous stuff. And we've got that at least in 3 spots right now, and that is going to continue for a while, these current warnings. So we'll continue to talk weather. So now if you're in areas farther to the east and you haven't gotten wet just yet, that's good. Just be ready. Maybe now is a good time to take the dogs out and get everything done, so that way you're prepared for when that weather gets to where you are. And I know there's going to be lots of folks that are starting to get ready and get stirred in Tallahassee, right, ready to make their morning commute. Maybe it's a good time to wait a little bit. You don't want to be out there in the middle of it. If you can get out there and be done with your commute before it happens, great. But I think we're within a half hour now for this weather that's approaching Quincy to make it to more of Tallahassee sooner in western parts of Leon County, maybe out towards Fort Braden and way out Highway 20 and way out I-10 in western Leon County. This is going to be where you are really soon. Same in northern parts of Thomas County. So we've got quite a bit of activity moving in. Let's zoom in, as a matter of fact, into the parts of Thomas, Grady, and Decatur up there and take a look and see where that rain is moving all along Highway 84. Maybe giving Bainbridge a little bit of a break after a very intense hour or so. But Cairo now getting a whole lot of rain, and that is also making its progress closer and closer to right where Highway 19, Highway 319 sort of intersect and Highway 84 in Thomasville. So that's going to be one of those areas right now where I think the rain is going to get really intense, and it's going to be there for a little while, and it's likely going to last for about 15 or 20 minutes until it moves more east along Highway 84 and then starts to find its way over towards Boston and Quitman and Valdosta. So within the next hour, we're going to see that all spread more to the east, and hopefully things will start to quiet down for more areas further back to the west, like Highway 27 that has been inundated with the rain and the lightning and the wind gusts since a little bit earlier on. And we were watching some of that hail in parts of Grady County. Hopefully that's quieting down, but I still see a lot of those deeper colors moving into parts of Thomas County where we could probably see some of the hail making it there too. And sure, we can see a little hail south of Cairo. We see a little bit more making it into northern Thomas County, up Highway 19, south of Camilla, north of Thomasville. So those are going to be some of those areas that could be getting a little bit of hail right now. So dangerous stuff all over the place. Lots of lightning all over the place, and impressive amounts of lightning in the last 5 or 10 minutes for sure. All right, we're still watching that area in Gadsden County. Let's zoom into that one and get a look at what's going on in Gadsden County right now. And I think at this point, we're looking at more wind and rain and lightning, and it definitely looks a little less intense on the reflectivity. Let's go to the velocity product over here and see what happens with that. And yeah, I still see that bright green. I still see that bright red just south and west of Quincy. So that tells me that there's still the potential for that rotation. So this is going to be one of those areas. If you're near Quincy, especially south and southwest of Quincy, you're going to want to make sure that you're in your shelter. You want to make sure you're a safe place. You want to get away from those exterior windows and doors and walls. Get the pets inside in those areas, because that's real dangerous stuff. And this is moving towards the east, right along I-10. You see where Fort Braden is down there, a little bit south of where that individual cell is. Now this cell has got a little bit of a south and east progression to it. It should stay north of Fort Braden, but that's going to be an area where we're going to get some intense rain and wind and lightning in the next little while, and that's going to make more of Highway 20 and more of areas way out into western Leon County where we get some dangerous weather in the next 15 or 20 minutes. So this area, big concern for dangerous weather as it works its way from west to east. And you never play around with a situation where there's possible rotation. The radar says there's rotation. We take it seriously. We make sure we get the word out, and we make sure we let you know that this is a dangerous spot and you're going to want to get away from those exterior windows, doors, walls, etc. Looks like they've extended that warning now into the rest of Gadsden County and into western parts of Leon County, as to be expected, right? We've been watching this for the past 10, 15 minutes, and we keep seeing that green and that red real close together. That indicates that there's some rotation there. I'm also starting to, let's get it to the current frame and stop here for a second.
This is an observed tornado. now?
Now it's observed tornado.
Yes.
All right, Josh is here now helping me out, so that's great. Observed tornado, so somebody saw it someplace, more than just radar. Do you see down here, maybe just a little bit northeast of Hosford? That's another area where it looks like we're starting to see some brighter velocities, so the winds are moving a little bit faster in this area, at least in one direction. It won't take much for that to get bumped and start rotating a little bit more too. So areas just east of Hosford, in extreme western parts of Leon County, going to be another spot that I'm watching with a little bit extra concern now over the next little while to see if this does indeed turn into something more than what it is right now. And of course, it is plenty dangerous right now. Areas on the south side of Quincy, just south of I-10, that's where we have the most dangerous weather. But you see where this polygon is that extends to near Fort Braden and maybe along Highway 90 in western parts of Leon County, where we could have some dangerous weather in the next little while. Let's go back to the reflectivity. And on the reflectivity, what we're going to see, maybe a little less lightning. Okay, so that's encouraging. But I certainly do see some pretty intense rain still coming down from near Quincy to near the Leon County border. I see quite a bit when you get past Highway 27 and get into South Georgia. And if we go back into South Georgia, by the way, where we still have that warning going on north of Cairo, south of Camilla, over near Spence, maybe south of Moultrie, and well north of Thomasville. But in northern Thomas County, seems like we've got a lot of lightning and we've got some of those really deep colors. So it feels like that hail is continuing to make progress east, moving out of Grady County into more of Thomas County with the frequent lightning and frequent wind gusts. So another really dangerous situation up here. Let's check the velocities up in South Georgia and see if maybe some of those are starting to quiet down a little tiny bit. Yeah, not as intense across the board, and I see more of a severe thunderstorm issue here for some of that hail and some of those wind gusts, and that seems to be a more likelihood for us. And that is going to include, by the way, areas like Thomasville now, where especially when you get maybe just north of the city, where some of those more rich colors indicating some of that hail would be, and that's where some of those wind gusts are going to be. So this is one of those areas, real dangerous stuff. And if you're going to be anywhere near Thomasville, or if you are in Thomasville, it's a good idea to get to an interior room in the home, even if there's not rotation, but just in case some of that hail is causing some trouble, or some of those wind gusts can be just as damaging as a tornado. So this is one of those areas now, and I've said it a couple times, I'm going to keep saying it. I know we've got people just tuning in or maybe tuning out because I'm talking about the same area too much. I apologize, but we'll say it again. This is not the time to start the morning commute in any of these areas. If you've got a normal morning travel that takes you along Highway 84 between Cairo or Bainbridge and Thomasville to Quitman or Boston or Valdosta, let the storm pass where you are before you get out on the roads. It's a terrible idea to be out there right now. This is a dangerous situation. Even if there's no rotation in these thunderstorms where you are, the wind gusts alone can move cars around the road. The heavy rain can cause problems driving, problems with visibility. It's just a better idea to let this rain pass, give it an hour, and it'll pass.
Yeah, Rob, our tornado warning for South Georgia has expired, so that one is no longer
Excellent.
on the board.
All right, good. So now the tornado warning done, the rotation no longer indicated, but we see the other polygon for the severe thunderstorm warning, and we've been watching on the reflectivity. We can see those deeper colors, and we've been checking the hail tracker, and we've been seeing some of the hail for sure. We have another camera view to take a look at. Let's do it. Where's that camera view going to be? Sneads High School. So we're a little further west out I-10, and you can see a lot of the rain droplets on the lens. You can see the flashes of lightning. So for sure, there's been a lot going on. And you know, earlier this morning, when you get out there west of Gadsden County and I-10, all the way down to the Gulf Coast, down towards Destin, there were several warnings over there. So same kind of thing, right? We're still watching for some of these dangerous individual cells to make that progress east. And this air is very warm, humid, and unstable. Maybe not as unstable as it was yesterday when the temperatures were so high, but it's certainly unstable enough where we're going to likely find more dangerous individual cells. And right now, the one we're going to have to watch the most carefully is this one, leaving Gadsden County and moving into parts of western Leon County. Highway 90, Highway 20, I-10, going to be all areas in western Gadsden County, maybe western Leon County, where from near Fort Braden and just on up, maybe up towards the Lake Jackson area, that we're going to be watching real carefully, because not only is there here some radar indicator rotation, but we're seeing some more frequent lightning, and it looks like that lightning is starting to get a little bit more intense in a few more spots as it leaves Gadsden County. So there's quite a bit of fuel here to develop more showers, more storms with more intensity, and that's a dangerous situation. Looks like I see another polygon issued for farther south into parts of Leon County, and this is going to extend a little bit more all the way to the Highway 319 corridor in southernmost Leon County. So let me say it one more time. I know this is typically one of those morning commute periods. Get past 6:30, 6:45, and people are making that trek from Wakulla County into Leon, right? The Crawfordville Highway is a big area or like that. Now is not the time to make that commute. Let this weather get past where you are and then get on the roads. And of course, give it time for some of the water to subside, because in addition to, we're talking about tornado warnings, we're talking about rotation, we're talking about wind gusts, but there's also going to be heavy rain in those areas, intense rain that piles up on the roads real fast, and that can cause some flooding concerns, and that makes for some real treacherous travel. So looks like they issued even another warning for parts of Gadsden County. Let's zoom in right here, and let's take the lightning off, and let's go to a still shot so we can see what we're talking about here. And from near Quincy to near Fort Braden into western parts of Leon County, that's right now where we've got the observed tornado, right? Someone saw it, so it's more than just that radar indicated one. Let's take a look here at the velocity product and see what we see. And yeah, now, remember before we had that one little speck of bright green and that one little speck of dark purple? Well, now we've got quite a bit of bright green, and that extends a little further to the south. So there's almost like 1, 2, 3 areas with that bright green, telling us that there are very intense winds moving towards the radar. And not too far away from it, we've got some somewhat intense winds moving away from the radar. So when you have those two different winds close to each other in real close proximity, moving in different directions at high speeds, that's a really good indication that there could be or should be some sort of rotation. That's usually what triggers the radar to issue the warning, because we indicate that rotation in that small area. And then we extrapolate where that should be moving based on where it's been. So for the time being, areas like between Quincy and Fort Braden, where this little cell is here, we expect that to be moving more towards the east and southeast. Now, a little further south, maybe a little south and west of Fort Braden. That's the Highway 20 area we were talking about earlier, where this one is. Looks like it's moving a little bit more towards the southeast. So maybe towards Highway 267 and Highway 20. Going to be an area out in western Leon County where there's some potentially dangerous weather. So anyone in these areas, first things first, if you got friends or loved ones there, call them up, wake them up, make sure they're aware that we've got some dangerous weather moving into that area. Second, we don't want to be on any roads right now. We want to make sure we're in a structure someplace. If you live in a mobile home in those areas, and if there's a mobile home shelter in that development, get to the mobile home shelter, because this is a very dangerous situation. And then finally, you want to make sure that you're on the lowest floor of your home, away from those exterior windows, doors, walls. Get someplace inside. Bathrooms are great, closets are great, stairwells are great. Just away from the parts of the house where, if there are any pieces of debris flying around outside from those wind gusts or from that rotation, you're not near it, so you have that biggest layer of insulation to protect you on where you are. So here's what we've got over the past little while watching those velocities, and yeah, it definitely looks like we're talking 2 or 3 distinct different areas where we can certainly see those brighter colors next to some darker colors. One right here on Highway 20, one right here near Fort Braden, one right here, maybe just a little tiny bit to the west of Midway. I'd say about 4 or 5 miles from Midway. So in the next 4 or 5 minutes, this may be passing by just south of Midway, just south of I-10 in western parts of Leon County. So those are going to be the areas we're watching very, very carefully. I'm going to be a little surprised, by the way, if this polygon doesn't get bigger or extended, and that would probably include some of the campus area and some of the downtown area and the airport area, because that seems to be the trajectory where that individual cell is. Hopefully, this will weaken with each scan, although I'm not really seeing a lot of it, and we're going to start running into the one issue that drives meteorologists crazy, is when you have these cells and they get near the radar tower. You'd think they get closer to the radar should be able to pick them up better, but usually it's harder and harder to pick them up because they're too close to the radar tower. Well, there's the radar tower, and there's the individual cell we're talking about. So it's within a few miles. So it's actually going to start to blend in and get difficult to see. We actually get a chance to see these individual cells and what's going on when they're a little farther away from the radar. So this may start to get masked a little bit as it gets closer and closer to campus and the airport where the radar is. So a lot to watch over the next little while. I apologize to some areas that I may be talking about the same spot and I'm leaving you out. I'm not trying trying to leave anybody out. But there's only so much that we can talk about, and right now, those areas where we have those individual cells are the more dangerous ones. What's up, Josh?
Yeah, those are two confirmed tornadoes, and what we're watching here right now, if you're a little bit confused on this view, everyone that's watching, this kind of shows us if debris is getting lofted up into the sky because of a potential tornado on the ground. And those two little dots that I circled for you there, those do indicate that there is some debris getting lofted upwards, which does tell us that there are two tornadoes on the ground there at the time.
All right, so a lot going on. I just snuck off to get a sip of water. There's a lot going on out there, and I haven't heard about, we have any power outage issues or anything like that? Has anybody heard about any of that?
Yeah, we have no cameras on that I-10 corridor in Gadsden County.
All right. All right, so there's a camera maybe out near Midway. We'll see if we can look at it. But I haven't heard of any places or any developments losing power, so that's good. I know a lot of folks try to find us and maybe can't always find us on the television and other ways to get to us. Right now, we're doing all the work on the TV. Maybe they're simulcasting it someplace. I don't know how the technical side of that works. I know how the technical side of the weather part works. And right now, it's going to be what's going on around Midway, and it's going to be hard to see anything but frequent lightning. So this is a great camera to look at right now to give you an idea of what's going on outside. That is heavy rain, lots of wind, and frequent lightning, and that is near Midway, near one of those confirmed tornadoes. I still think I see 3 different spots on the radar. 2 are confirmed, and if we take a look here at the storm relative velocities, we're going to see one area here not too far from Midway, one over here not too far from Fort Braden, one over here on Highway 20. So 3 spots where there could be or should be some sort of rotation, and even if there's not rotation in all 3, there's definitely some dangerous wind in all 3 of those locations. So there's a lot going on, getting out of Gadsden County, getting into parts of Leon County. Frequent lightning, heavy rain, strong wind gusts, and that's the minimum. But there are some confirmed tornadoes. There is some rotation in those areas. So these are some really dangerous places to be right now. And that most recent extension of this tornado warning includes the city of Tallahassee. I'm hearing sirens go off, or I'm hearing the emergency alerts go off on your phone. So that's good. Hopefully that'll help wake everybody up if they're not awake, understanding what's going on with this weather. You do not want to be on the roads at this time. Bad idea, especially for Leon County. I know a lot of folks, this is like prime time to get to work from, if you're coming into Leon County from Wakulla County to work at the state office or something. Now is not the time. Come into work late today. Hopefully your bosses will be understanding. They should be, okay? The deal here is the next half hour or so going to be very dangerous and very treacherous out there, especially with the possibility of still that tornado or those tornadoes. And even if those tornadoes fizzle out, the wind gusts, the lightning, and the rain are going to make very difficult traveling. And I haven't seen any reports of how much rain falling per hour or anything like that. I haven't had a chance to check that out, but I bet it's been quite a bit because it's been pretty intense on the reflectivities. When you see these brighter colors, right? When we go from the greens to the yellows, to the reds, to the browns, that tells us how intense the rain is coming down. And that's a computer algorithm, so it's not always going to be 100% accurate. But it gives us a pretty good idea. When we see the light greens, it's a little bit of rain coming down. When we see the yellows, all right, now we're talking moderate rains. When we start to see the reds, and we've seen quite a bit of red in quite a few spots, that's heavy amounts of rain, and that's going to lead to some flooding. And we're seeing that, by the way, the whole Highway 319 corridor now showing lots and lots of rain. It goes up from Moultrie all the way down into parts of Leon County. So areas that maybe haven't had as much rain just yet, and I'm talking to you, like Jefferson County or Madison County or Taylor County or Brooks County, it's coming soon. These have been moving fairly quickly at about 30, 35 miles per hour. So within the next 15, 20 minutes, we're going to see a whole bunch of rain around Quitman. And maybe in the next 45 minutes, we're going to get it in Valdosta. And same, we're going to get it in the next 45 minutes for Monticello, and maybe the next hour to get it to Madison and to get it over towards Perry. So it is coming, and it's holding together very, very well. Even if it's not as intense, it's still going to be real wet, real windy, and lots of lightning. But the biggest concern, and at least for the next little while, it's going to be these 3 tornado warnings that are now for a big chunk of southern Leon County. It's really the I-10 corridor and south. So where the city of Tallahassee is, where campus is, where the airport is, these are going to be the areas that we have the biggest potential for danger with any of that rotation and any of the strongest and most intense. Now, it doesn't mean north of I-10 or along I-10 there can't be some dangerous weather. There absolutely can be. But it's going to be the areas a little further south, and right now it's going to be like near Fort Braden, way out Highway 20. That's where the cells are right now, and you can see where the brightest greens are. That's going to be this area from Midway, maybe just east of Fort Braden now. So maybe things are going to start quieting down for Fort Braden. But out Highway 20, over near Highway 267, we're talking Crawfordville Highway, and those areas are going to be really, really inundated with wind, lightning, and rain for the next little while. Hopefully, these areas with the rotation will start to fizzle. But we talked about that issue that sometimes happens when you get closer and closer to the radar tower, and these individual cells are really close to the radar tower. It makes it actually harder for the radar to pick them up than when they're further away. So that may be a little bit of an issue. So we're going to be a little extra cautious, and are going to continue to harp on the idea that everyone in this path here that is literally going to be from campus, from the airport, from campus out Highway 20 towards Fort Braden, this is going to be an area where we need to make sure that we're in our safe places, that we're, if we live in an apartment complex, right? We want to get downstairs if we can. We want to get to an interior area. Stairwells are great places to be. Bathrooms, closets are great places to be, away from those exterior windows, doors, and walls, because it's a dangerous situation in these areas. As long as there's potential rotation, very dangerous. As long as the wind gusts are as strong as they've been, and they've been pretty strong, dangerous stuff. So we're going to want to make sure that we're taking our precautions in these areas, especially for now parts of western Leon County, especially south of I-10, but even just north of I-10. So where the I-10, Highway 319 exchanges, areas like that, which is right where the TV station is, by the way. So maybe we'll start to hear it real soon, or maybe we'll get a camera outside real soon to see what's going on with that. But I haven't heard a whole bunch of rain at the station just yet. Let's go back to the reflectivity and see what's going on. I'm encouraged, by the way, that the velocity product is showing maybe a little less of those bright whites and bright greens, and it's starting to get a little bit less bright, maybe indicating that it's a little bit less intense, but also that could be that issue with it starting to get too close to the radar tower. So got a couple of ifs and buts there that I'm not comfortable with, but that's what happens when the cell goes near where the radar tower itself is. So you can see some of the biggest lightning now moving east through Gadsden County, and that's been a really intense area, by the way. I see more extending all the way back down into parts of Gulf Bay and Liberty counties, so we've got even more possible rotation farther to the south and west. Hopefully those will find their way over the Gulf of Mexico and away from all land areas. But for the time being, some of those rains in parts of Grady County, Thomas County right now, right through Thomasville, real busy, up through Moultrie, the whole Highway 319 corridor, when you get, say, north of I-10, that's a big mess right now. So you don't want to be on the roads for sure, and you're going to want to give it a little time for this to get past where you are. That lightning, very, very intense, and we're certainly finding some of those stronger wind gusts in these areas too. Highway 84 is going to be really, really wet over towards Quitman in the next few minutes. It's maybe not soggy in Quitman yet, but it's going to get there. Same in Valdosta, where maybe we haven't had as much rain yet, but it's coming. And then we can see back behind all of it, there's still quite a bit of rain up Highway 27. It's not like it stops all of a sudden. There's still rain out there. So this is going to be one of those situations where once the worst of it gets past where you are, it doesn't just stop, it gets weaker, and it's going to be like exhale and it's better, but it's still raining and it's still breezy and there's still lightning. So we've got all that still coming through the area. So this is going to go for a while, and with a little bit of luck, we've always been kind of estimating around 9 o'clock. Most of this should be east of the area. Well, it's coming up on 7 o'clock, so we still have 2 more hours where we could be talking about some pretty intense rain and wind, and some parts of our area could get more dangerous weather than that. Right now, the most dangerous is going to be in that southern parts of Leon County, where we've got those 3 different tornado warnings. Do we have estimated times for the expiration of those tornado warnings, guys?
Yeah, we do. I'll go ahead and check them for you. All right. The observed tornado that we have for Leon, Wakulla counties, that one is in place until 7:30.
Okay.
The other few are also in place. I'll go ahead and click on it here. Gives you a good idea. We've got one in place till 7:30, and then another one in place till 7:45. So about another 30 to 45 minutes for both of these.
All right, so the tornado warning for Leon and Wakulla, that's the observed tornado, till 7:30. The severe thunderstorm warning goes till 7:45. So we're coming up on 7 o'clock. So hopefully we'll start to see some more encouraging news with the radar being able to pick up that individual cell with the rotation. And if that can get weaker, maybe we can start to see that wind down a little bit sooner. Like I said, we're going to get into that part now where it's right on top of the radar. So the storm that we're talking about itself, by the way, going to be near campus, near the airport. That is going to be one of those that if you're in that area, you definitely want to make sure you're in your shelter. You're going to be away from exterior windows, doors, walls, etc. Now, this other one is a little further to the south that also shows some pretty good reds and greens next to there. Let's go back to the camera on I-10. All right, let's bring us back to the camera on 10 Midway. And yeah, you can see it there. Okay, there are still a few too many cars on the road for my liking that are probably pushing their luck by trying to drive through this. But the cars are out there. We've got quite a bit of lightning out there and some serious rain coming down in sheets, it looks like. And you can certainly see off in the distance those flashes over and over and over again. So yeah, there's definitely spots right now where it's dangerous out there. We go to the debris signature. We usually go to this to sort of give ourselves like a check. Did indeed something happen? That's what this will show us. You know, the velocity product can show us the winds, and the reflectivity products shows us the rain. The debris signature shows us that there's stuff floating around. It's going to be really hard to see anything near that radar tower. That's just, it's unfortunate that this is near the radar tower. But now, if you don't realize where the radar tower is right by the airport.